Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm doing a new episode of the Whole Athlete Podcast with someone new on the show that I found from an email I got from him, Nathan Last. Hello, Nate.
Hey, how are you doing, everybody?
Glad you can come on the show, and we're just talking about the whole athlete. As you guys have listened for a while, we've been talking about different topics of the holistic method, which is 8 elements I say really are needing to be in order or focused on to really transform the whole you from the inside out for athletes of all levels, for life and our sports that we choose, of triathlons or anything. But you are doing coaching programs, and tell us a little bit about you, and we're going to talk about a big part of what I believe in is the mental side of coaching and for triathletes today.
Absolutely. And, you know, I like to always start with this question just because it's so phenomenal what you get the answers for. But, you know, how much is triathlon mental versus physical? When it comes to competition, performance, success, I mean, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I think, you know, doing Ironman distance, and I've done 50K trail running, it's a lot of what's upstairs. You know,
what
just
kind
the
of
mental
percentages would you throw up again? Like 100% of all of it. How much of it is mental and how much is physical?
Yeah, I'd say probably, 40% mental, 60% physical.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people say, you know, similar things. I even have people say, oh, it's 90% mental and 10% physical. And it always just kind of shocks me. And I heard that once, and I agree. I was a University of Utah lacrosse player, collegiate, had a great time doing it. But yeah, I would have said the same thing of success and performance, especially at that level, is very mental. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you ask the question of, okay, if it's that mental, what are you doing to train it? What are you doing to actually train that mental game, right? And that big aspect of your performance of your sport. And a lot of people just shake their head and say, I don't. And which kind of shocked me. So, you know, I went into developing a little bit more understanding, especially through university and through my own experience of what can you do to train the mental game, to develop that mental game. And there is so much out there. There's years and years and years, hundreds of years of research and development, and then applied sports science that can apply here. So yeah, that's kind of where I started at. And the importance kind of comes into that same answer that you gave is it's very mental.
So go back though, talk about, you have an MS degree, and what's your education and as a coach and an athlete, give us a little brief overview of who you are and how you got into, you know, like you just said, there's definitely importance of mental performance, but what's your background that you got into educating other coaches and athletes in this area?
Absolutely. So I was a youth athlete. I did a lot in youth athletics, in motocross, in ballroom dance, in lacrosse, obviously, in golf. And, you know, that kind of led into my passion for sports, got into university, and was actually inside of in mechanical engineering, interestingly enough. Went 2 years and didn't find a passion in it. I wanted to work with people. I wanted to work with athletes specifically. So I jumped into the sports science program at the University of Utah and found a joy and love in it. And, you know, went through the nutrition side of things and went through, physiology and anatomy and chemistry and kind of figuring out how the human body works. And then there was this whole other aspect of performance of the experience of the human body, which is the mind, which totally blew my entire world up is I didn't understand it. Had no idea. And this was me going through an experience where I had just injured myself inside of lacrosse, and I was having a hard time getting back on the team. Didn't really understand the sociological and psychological effects of that injury when I was playing. And, you know, I always had these big, you know, had a lot of potential in lacrosse, but never really fulfilled that potential. And I never understood why until I started studying sports psychology or performance psychology. If you look at the technical definition, it's the psychological and sociological aspects of sport. That's my technical degree. But it's sports psychology, and it's not sports psychology from the side of, disorder, of ADHD, bipolar, of, the psychological disorder. We're talking about things that you can do mentally to optimize your potential, your physical potential. And there are a lot of things that you can do. So that's what piqued my interest in school, in my sporting career. And by developing these mental skills, is what I call them, or what the field calls them, I got better. I got better at sport. I got better at school. And I got better in my relationships in my life because I was starting to, optimize and utilize these tools.
So as we're recording this, it's December and it's holiday season is here, and people are listening to the podcasts in order. There's a theme going on, and it's been about happiness. And the last week's last episode was on letting the inner you come out and working on your child ego and letting go of things. Mm-hmm. And then the week before, the episode prior to that, we talked to naturopath and Kona about happiness and training. And I think a lot of that is similar to what you're going to get into, is the mental performance. Is that a lot of, how we train and race and our performance levels are, as we said in the very beginning, are a lot dependent on our training schedule, but just as much important, as Mark Allen's talked about a lot about on the inside, and, that mind-body connection and the mental performance. But a lot of it, as I'm saying, is happiness is related to it, and be able to be happy and get in that zone and be positive. So I would think a lot of the negative self-talk that Mark's talked about is to overcome that. If you want to continue on a race or get back to, say, you got cut in sports and injury and you can't get back to lacrosse team. So I think this topic is really relevant to any age and any sport, but also in life, how to make a comeback and how to, get to that finish line. And no matter what you're doing, if it's a divorce or, an injury or surgery or a race. So kind of talk about what is mental performance training, and let's kind of dive into the brief overview of the program that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the end, I talk about the 5 mental skills. And these are skills that pertain to performance. They pertain to happiness. I mean, they pertain to just simply getting better at what's going on in your mind. And I call them skills for a reason, because skills are things that you can develop. They're skills that you can work on, that you can practice. Just like the physical skill of developing a cadence on your bike or in your swim, developing that technique of being able to pull in the swim as well, or even just efficient technique in running. These are all very, very similar. You can develop it through practice. So if we begin with the first 5, and if I may, ask even you to kind of assess yourself really quick on kind of where you're at within these skills, from 1 to 5, 1 being you can't do them at all, and 5 being you're really, really good at this skill, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd have everybody listening do the same. So the first is emotional control, is being able to control and utilize the energies of the race itself. A lot of people who don't have this skill go into a race, an open water situation, a different situation, chaotic situation, and they let them energies kind of get the best of them. They go out way too hard. They are unable to control those emotions, those maybe anxiety, possibly, maybe the fears, possibly, but also could go on the other side of just that energy that permeates with the new crowd around you. So the skill of being able to control those emotions, to utilize those emotions to help you, is the most important part of emotional control. And if you don't have that emotional control base, it's really hard to do any of these other skills. So which is why I teach and help athletes develop emotional control first. So even if I asked you right now, where would you be at on your emotional control kind of skill set within triathlon as a whole? Do you have a thought there?
Well, right now, for me, I'm getting put on the spot here, but I haven't been, no, it's okay, but this is a good example. I was just thinking back, I haven't raced for a few years, so you're new to the podcast, but I, for 5 years, been healing from adrenal exhaustion. I had to kind of quit abruptly in 2013 from being top of my age group. And so back then when I was fit and strong, I did have to overcome, I know from swimming in an Ironman, it is not my fastest part, but I had a bad swim, for example, in Coeur d'Alene. And I have these expectations of, most of us are type A personalities that are triathletes and overachievers and overdoers. So I found that, one race I always remember is having to switch my mindset in my bike ride because I was so far back off my game time, my goals that I had, and I had to get rid of those negative thoughts in my head really quickly and deal with that and make a comeback. So that, I think, is a good example for myself of how I had to overcome that. Like, oh my gosh, I'm 20 minutes off and I have to kick my butt to get out there without going anaerobic, because that's how I do well, is staying aerobic and working on that heart rate that Mark Allen coached me and did all that. Currently, it is a very big part emotionally. So rating 1 to 5, I think it's a 3, and I'm, it was maybe like at a 2 because of coming back from adrenal exhaustion. It's very mentally struggling because I'm not fast, and I have a lot of health issues that I, used to do a marathon, a 3:12 marathon, and now it's like running a 7:30 pace I can't even do in a 400 meter track interval. So it's like how to just let go of your ego. And that's been my biggest challenge last few years, is trying to rebuild myself and make myself healthy again, is not have that emotional issue and just like, be happy with what you've got right now. Don't say the age excuse. But anyways, I could talk forever about it, but it is a big, huge point that you have to sometimes be happy. I'm able to run. I have a friend who's Ironman days are kind of over because her knees are bone on bone. She can't run, but I can run just slower. Maybe it's a 10-minute mile instead of, a 8 or a 7 that I'd want to get back down to. But you have to be happy with what you've got and then rebuild. So I think you have to, it is that mental training.
And that actually brings up a great point. We talk about this idea of happiness. And what we say in the mental skills training world is you put power behind what you focus on and what you pay attention to. And if you're focusing on paying attention to things that piss you off or that don't make you happy, or all the expectations or things that you can't control, then it doesn't help you by any means. And the fun part about it is you can control where your attention goes if you want, if you have an awareness over it. But if you don't, then you kind of just let it go awry and you let it control you sometimes. But it sounds like that you're, I guess you could say that, when it comes to the emotional control side of this, the skill of emotional control, that you have an awareness over your emotions, and you're able to kind of use those emotions to help you. Rather than just let them get to you. And we're not talking about like self-talk here. We're not talking about kind of those things. We're talking more about, okay, there's a lot of emotions that happen within racing, within training, dealing with and being aware of those emotions and then controlling those emotions to help you is really the skill of emotional control, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a really good sense of that and a good control over that, or especially when you were in your racing days.
Well, I did. And, it's been 5 years since I've been able to race at my high level. And just, I've had a lot of work you have to do when you can't do what you love to do. You just, I'd be frustrated, and it's better not do it at all, but just be like, all right, I have to go for a walk today. I can't go run. And I think a lot of athletes can relate that it is those days just, okay, what can I be? And that's why I talk to my clients I coach as well, is like, what are you grateful for? I mean, some days,
beautiful.
If you have troubles, I have them write in I do a detox and reset program with transformation program, and I have them write in a journal 3 things we're grateful for that day. And
every day.
I'm trying to keep it by your bed, and before you go to bed, just write in this journal and just write. And I think, I have to do it again myself, but it is have to think of the positive of everything, and not, it took me a while to get rid of the negativity and turn it around and make it positive. And I think a lot of people can do that a little better.
Definitely. And that's the strategy. And that is actually a research-based strategy that's been researched. And it says, when you put down 3 positive, things that you're grateful for, and it doesn't even have to be positive, just things that you're grateful for, it puts your mindset in a different kind of state to allow you to approach that day in a more positive way. And the more you do it, the more you start focusing on things that help you rather than hurt you. And that goes back to you put power behind what you focus on, and you'll start seeing mindset changes. And they've seen it in research across the last 20, 30 years. since they kind of found out about this little technique. So this is a great example of little techniques, little tools that are out there in the sports psychology world that you can use as an athlete to help you perform better, because we know that when you have a more positive, more happy outlook, you're going to train better. You're going to be happy. You're going to enjoy what you're going to be doing a lot more. You're not going to be susceptible to burnout or whatever it might look like, right? And there's so much research out there and so much proof behind some of these concepts. That's where all of my training comes from. That's what the master's degree was let's study all of this stuff that literally shows us what you can do to be a better performer as an athlete. You mentioned another thing, being in the present moment. You said you were on that bike and you were in that moment and you had to come, rather than think about the finish line, you had to kind of come back to that process of, okay, just take a breath and keep biking and keep moving, rather than, oh, I'm not going to make my outcome time. I'm not going to get my expectation. And then that just, puts you into a tailspin. But the fact is that mental skills training is about controlling these aspects, right? And using these aspects. If you were going on the second skill that we're talking about, focus and concentration, this is talking about the capacity to focus. This is talking about putting your focus where you want it to help you inside of that performance. This might be even a goal, kind of set up. But are you focused more on, some outcome goal that you're looking at accomplishing, or are you focused on the things that help you accomplish that? Right. And being able to control that and being able to use that tool of, okay, I need to make sure that I'm more focused on the process rather than the outcome, and working on that. Right. Because we know that when you do that, you're going to be faster. You're going to be a better performer. You're going to be happy. You're going to be all those things. Right. So
I was just laughing because I said this in my book. I wrote a book about all this. It was a good therapy session called Life
you wrote the book and it was a therapy session.
Yeah. I wrote my book called Life is Not a Race is about my whole kind of background of building up to adrenal fatigue and then the afterwards. But I wrote my last best race in Ironman Canada. I said how it was my best race because I was happy. And I made it really fun and was cheering people on and calling people's names around their race numbers then. And so I could say, hey, good job. And, it was just so powerful. And that mindset of getting that energy from each other, I've said, was so powerful and helped me go faster, but keep my heart rate down. Yeah. I just was having that state of joy and did my best Ironman time. I think because of that, because it was that mindset of happiness.
And look at what happens physiologically when you're happy versus when you're stressed or when you're freaking out, right?
Yeah.
Stress in the end, which releases all these hormones that are actually not very helpful when it comes to endurance sports, right? I'm not going to get into all the science of all of it, but the fact is that you're going to have more helpful hormones in your body when you're happy and when you're enjoying yourself versus when you're stressed. And that includes energy consumption within your body. If you're stressed out, freaking out about things, and in your mind, your body's having a physiological response to that, putting you in in a state that doesn't help you. So again, that's where the training comes in, and it's like, okay, that being stressed out doesn't help you go fast. Well, what state helps you go fast? Well, we know being happy and enjoying it and all of this stuff. Okay, what can you do in order to help you get there? Right? Every single time. And it's teaching people how to, take their awareness off of expectations, and learning how to think more about, what they can do rather than what everybody else expects them to do, or their comparisons of everybody. That is one of the worst things as an athlete you can ever do. I'm going to say this, right? I am going to say it and state it. If you are comparing yourself to other people, you are not optimizing your full physical potential. You're not going to be able to go out there and truly perform on race day. Now, if you want to use comparisons to help motivate you during training, okay, fine, great. If you get to the day of the race and you're sitting there thinking, I have to go faster than that person, or I've got to beat that person, or I want to beat her or him or whatever it might be, guess who you're not focused on?
Yourself.
You. Which, when you're focused on you, when you're present, and it's teaching athletes how to be that way, how to put themselves in that mindset. That's what mental skills training is all about. And that's what sports psychology is all about. And it's been shown so effective from athletes, at every sport, at every level. When you have these skills and you develop these understandings of yourself and how to go about it, you're going to be a better performer.
Wouldn't that apply to daily living? Like I own a fitness studio and I just finished training clients for the last 6 hours, and I've done this for 25
Kudos
years.
for being here, my goodness.
Yeah, no, this is my break. I gotta sit down. But it's my job, so fun training my clients. But I'm always working on my clients too, and they don't do running races and triathlons. They're just trying to be, slow the aging process down, I say. And I find a lot of people that are working full time, heavy duty jobs, lots of responsibilities. They're parents, they have kids, they have all these responsibilities. Yeah. So even if you're not a competitive triathlete, I think these skills are really important for people just everyday life.
Yeah.
Because so many people do not take care of themselves. There's like everyone else is first. I just had this conversation with someone yesterday or today. I swear it's every day. It's like, okay, you got to put yourself up higher on the chart and take care of yourself. It's that whole oxygen mask thing before you can help your family. So shouldn't you be the healthy person to take care of you and then everyone else? But
and that's
it
so
doesn't
hard to do
work that way.
It's so easy to say, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I it's just like saying focus or relax, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay,
but how?
But it's so easy to say, shut up, legs. It's so easy to say, you can do it. Go faster, go harder, push. It's so easy to say. It is so hard to do.
So how do we do it though?
You engage.
Yeah.
And that is the premise of training, is it not? It's engaging in the things that you need to do in order to help you get that, right? Mm-hmm. If you want balance, engage in being balanced then, right? If you want a better body, engage in getting a better body. Realizing that it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take a lot. I mean, that's the same conversation every coach has with every client they have, right? Or every athlete. You're going to have to work is one of the things that they say in that initial meetings. And it's like, yeah, of course. But it's simply, engaging in it. If they find that they do have negative self-talk, okay, that's fine. That's okay. Everybody does, right? Let's do something about it though. Let's engage in it and let's work within that idea of what is your negative self-talk and how can we combat it and how can we move on from it? How can we change the channel?
Do you have people write things down, like a journal and exercises? And I think writing is crucial.
Oh, no doubt. We say ink it, don't think it in the field, right? Just because you remember things and you're able to get it out of your head, which is always helpful. A lot of underperforming athletes say, the reason they underperform is because they get in their head. They think too much. Rather than get into that flow state or that state of just being present in that mindful state, whatever that might look like for them. But everybody's individual. Everybody is completely, and I don't develop programs for that reason because there is no one size fits all. There is a generic base of information that you would want as an athlete of saying, hey, here's the stuff that you can start working on, in terms of information and of mental training. Examples of that is belly breathing, of deliberate belly breathing, and learning how, what your stress indicators are. And then doing something, if you're on the bike and you see your knuckles are white, it's like, okay, just breathe and let those knuckles go and just work on that for the next 5 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it might be. Right. But just by engaging in it again, it's going to help. So, I apologize. I totally don't remember the question that we were going off of here, but I literally love these conversations.
Yeah, no, that's why. That's why I like the podcast. Is just not have some three questions, just let it go where it goes. So you do mental grit consulting, and you're doing coaching for coaches, but also you're working one-on-one with people to create programs for them that work So what is mental grit?
So mental grit is actually two-sided. One of my goals and aims is to bring sports psychology, mental skills training to youth athletics. This stuff is utilized at the elite and the professional levels, but it's not available for youth developmental athletes. What could you have done if you learned how to control your self-talk when you were, 14, 15 years old?
Powerful.
What could that have done for your relationships, right? Like what would happen if you learned how to control anxiety and emotion when you were young? So if I would have had that, I continue to think back, which is one of my big driving forces in what I do. what if I had all that stuff? What better experiences could I have had? What different decisions would I have made? Because I had more control over myself and of my mind, and I understood it a little bit better. It's like, man, that would be cool. So that's one of my big aims. And the second big aim is to bring and make sports psychology available to just developmental athletes, not just youth. My whole program with Mental Grit is working alongside physical coaches, elite physical coaches, to support their athletes with the other side of training, right? I mean, we all, like we said before, there's the 40-60, right? There's 40% mental, 60% physical. Well, your coach is taking care of you physically. They're helping you develop the skills and the knowledge necessary to really optimize your race day performance. I just come in on the other side and say, okay, now let's have a resource for the mental side as well. Somebody that, have as an asset for the athletes, if they choose to train it. Because some athletes, they have the mental side down. They every time they go out there, they are optimized. They perform up to their full potential. They do really well. Others, they have all of this physical potential, but they just don't have it during the race day. They always practice and train really well, but then they get the race day and they blow up. And well, in most cases, you can do something about that. You can work on the mental side and you can develop that mental game. So again, it's just Mental Grit is about bringing support to coaches and athletes to be able to train this side of the sport.
Well, I think is strengthening their mindset and their being more positive will help them go into an event without the stress, which actually, the stress brain-gut connection, which can lead to other problems like IBS and constipation or whatever it might be, but it's all connected. We've talked a lot over the show, different episodes about the gut health and how that the gut-brain connection and the nervous system. And I think that'd be interesting to see, because I know people that just even do marathons, they get all worked up, doing a half marathon or a full marathon. It's really psychological, but how they can overcome that workup and not have the digestive issues on race day because of the stress that they're creating inside. So I think that mindset and mental prep before a race is really important for any athletic level.
Absolutely. And I will say this, in the beginning of my endurance sporting career, I had troubles like that every single time I raced. And this was when I was, 18, 19, 20 years old. Started getting more into endurance sports because I was so focused on the performance, the power sports like lacrosse and golf. Not to say that golf is really.
I was going to say golf power sport. Well, if you talk to Brad Kearns, he does golf, speed golf, so that's to be different. But
yeah, right. Or those long drivers. My goodness, they have some powerful swings. But I started developing the whole endurance side of things, and I had those issues every single time. After going through my program, I started integrating all of these mental skills training platforms, started developing my own mental skills. I can say after that experience, I wanted to get more involved in triathlon. I wanted to get more involved in endurance sports because I couldn't help these athletes that I was working with. I was like, I don't understand your mindset. Like, what does it mean to be in pain? Like, what is that? And this was 5 years ago. And so I kind of set it out as a mission of, I want to take all of this information, all of this knowledge, this science that I just learned, and I want to apply it. Let's go see how I do. Not a great physical athlete, endurance athlete. I want to go see if I can do an Ironman. I completed an Ironman 18 months later. I completed 7 half Ironmans in between. And I never had a gut issue ever again. And I very much attribute it. And this is my own personal experience. And there's a ton of research, behind all of it. But in the end, I wanted to see if it really worked. I really wanted to understand it. And, the day I started controlling my self-talk and my attention and being more present, this, that, and the other, there's so many different, skills that we're talking about here. The better I got. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't difficult. That doesn't mean that I didn't want to quit. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't motivated, right? I was very unmotivated and I did blow up in terms of just burnout because I went so hard so long. But I also was able to do, something so difficult with a good attitude, and I was positive and I was able to accomplish it. So I was like, okay, that validated a lot of this knowledge that I was working and developing. and is being utilized with these athletes that I'm working with now, and it's helping them. The stories that come out of the people I work with are so fun to read, because they went out, they did something that was difficult, and they did it in a way that was different for them. It was happy. It was It was exciting. It was fun rather than it sucked. It was the worst experience because I was in pain the entire time and very negative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got all these thoughts in my head. So going
there's
back,
1,000. We can talk about this all day long.
I just had two things. A client, I'm coaching some people do their first 50K for their 50th birthday, and we did a half marathon a few weeks ago. It was the first time on a trail, and I had to have her, stop and push reset and look around and because she was miserable. She's like, I hate this. I'm like, okay, we got halfway to go.
I say it's okay to be in the stuck or the suck. It's not okay to stay there, right? Yeah, it's okay to find yourself there.
Yeah, you just have to stop and, how can we find beauty in this or the joy and have fun and make it exciting, and like you said, get down like, oh my gosh, that was so great.
Yeah.
So I think you have to choose things that you like to do, or why.
Bingo.
Does our mindset, why do we make ourselves do a race or event that we don't even enjoy? I think it's like, or how do you just switch your mindset? Is it because we're doing things we don't like, or maybe you still do it, but how do you switch that mindset to make it more enjoyable, or is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. It's possible. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't think it was possible. I truly believe that every one of us can grow if you believe that you can grow. You can change your mindset.
That's the word though, right?
If you believe it. And,
believe it.
One of my jobs as a sports psych or as a mental conditioning coach is helping you understand and believe the capacity to choose. Mm-hmm. To choose your attitude, to choose your focus, to choose what you put your attention on. There's a lot of work that goes into being aware of what you're paying attention to, and being aware of what's hurting you and what's helping you. There's a lot of work there. But then there's, okay, now that let's choose something that's helpful. Let's choose something that is, and maybe it is negative, but it's helpful, right? And if we go into performance especially at the elite level, there's a lot of negative things that when an athlete uses it will help them push really hard up a really difficult session, but they use the negative to help them achieve this performance. And we're talking about performance as a whole. We're talking about sports, and it's not always about negative and positive. I mean, sometimes positive things don't help. Period, when you're out there, but sometimes they do.
Is it getting more confidence and maybe our training that we are more confident? So then it's more fun because we don't have to stress about not being able to perform our best because we didn't do the training and lack of fitness level. That's going to make me, that would make me frustrated. Like, oh my gosh, even I know clients I coach that I have to do this race. I'm not even prepared for it. Then I'll be stressed out and hating it.
You're right.
And just changing that mindset there.
Right. And sometimes it's not, just again, coming back, just because you have the mental, strength or the mental grit or the, all these mental skills behind you doesn't mean you're going to be able to go to race day untrained and kill the race. That doesn't make any sense, right? I always say that really sports are 10% mental and 90% physical. You guys have to do work. You have to train a ton. And you have to just do so much physically. But every % of mental development that you can do in sport, you optimize or you make available another 10% of that physical potential that you have. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're going to be unconfident going into a race that you didn't train for. You can't do anything about that. The one thing that you can do about that is train. Right? That's the best thing that you can do in the world for your confidence is train and be the most physical, able person out there. That'll bring you the most confidence in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you can finish.
You can do things like, okay, maybe you get to a race and you didn't train and you're unconfident and you're freaking out, right? And you have that anxiety. Okay, there's some things that you can do in that moment. You can get big. And you can show me a body structure and a power pose or some body language that actually correlates with some confidence, because you can control your body. I mean, sometimes we can't really control our minds, but okay, if we can control our body, we'll at least look confident. because when you look confident, it's actually been studied over and over again, is that when you put yourself in a power position like that, it actually releases those confidence hormones, those happy hormones, those positive hormones, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing you can do, is you can put yourself in a physical state that, maybe looks like confidence. And second of all, you can breathe. You can get big and you can breathe, and you can be in that moment present, and being aware of, okay, maybe that you are under-trained, but you can still go into this race effective and do the best race you can be in the state that you're currently in, and be present and not worry about all the outcomes and stuff like that. There's so much that goes into that one too. So,
so kind of switching it a little bit and going on to, it is off season for most athletes, unless you're going to New Zealand or Australia or somewhere to race in winter. But, there should be an off season, and you should kind of bring it down. And we've talked to Phil Maffetone many times, and Mark Allen, and I coached with them and with Mark, and it's all heart rate training. Uh-huh. But I find a lot of times this time of year is a good time for indoor training if you live, where there's seasons and it's colder, rainier, whatever. But so many people, we should be maybe working on mental performance now in a way for off-season training, as we do low heart rate, maybe work on strength training a little bit more and kind of change your routine up. But I know a lot of people are doing more indoor trainings, more hard, all-out power cycling classes indoor, getting those watts up as high as they can to do all this. But I think, I was just having this conversation, I thought it kind of a good question for you, is that, isn't it a good time of year to work on that mental side of things and making that base training? Isn't that part of where you can work on some skill training for the mindset? Definitely.
Mental skills training, mental grit is a practice. It's not an outcome. Yeah. It's not something you just get. It's not something that is a result. It's something that you do. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to make that very apparent. Mental skills training and mental grit is something that you practice. Something that you do. It's not something that you get.
So right? How will we train mental for off-season training? What can we do?
So this is actually a part of the Training Peaks program that I'm developing, a mental skills specific that would go alongside of anybody's general physical or skills or physical training period, right, inside of Training Peaks or plan. The first thing I have any athlete do is I ask them to have a deliberate purpose for every training program or every training that they do. Is when you go into it, I want you to pick one thing that you're going to get better on, that's going to help you accomplish whatever you're going to accomplish that day. Because I think so many athletes go into practice, go into training without any reason they're doing it. They just say, "Okay, coach, aye, captain," and they go into it, and then they lose motivation because they really don't know why they're doing it, first of all. And so if I'm gonna say anything, I would practice the ability to put purpose behind what you're doing, right? And decide on the one thing that you're going to get out of that day. At the end of that training period, whatever it might be, whether it be swim, bike, or run, or weightlifting, you chose what you're going to put your focus on. You chose your purpose that day. Reflect back on that and go through what I call a well, better, how. What went well? What are you going to do better next time? One thing, and how are you going to get better at that one thing, right? So that's just a process that I have every athlete that I work with go through every time, they start working with me. They utilize that same focus technique every day. And they all of a sudden start seeing their skills get better, their motivation get better, because they're seeing progress in the one thing that they're working on. And then they can move on from that one thing instead of having the 500 things that you guys need to work on, right? Which we all have, 1,000 things in our head of things that we could get better at. We choose one. Yeah. That day I'm going to get better at this thing. Good. And that would be the first thing I would have them do. There's I could go into 1,000 different things, but I would practice at least that, right? Practice having a purpose in what you're doing. If I were to say any other one thing, I would say learning how to breathe when you have a scary moment inside of training, when things get tough. Learn how to stop yourself from going into freak out mode and start developing that ability to choose to go harder, to choose to breathe and reset and then move forward. Yeah. Focused on what you want rather than what you don't want. I find that a lot of athletes focus on all this. I don't want to feel pain, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. And it's like, I don't care what you don't want, and neither do you. You're not, don't think about a pink elephant. That's the typical thing that comes up in the field, right? What are you thinking about right now?
Oh, me?
Elephant. Yeah. So don't think about a pink elephant. If I were to say that, what would you say?
Yeah, pink elephant.
Yeah, you're thinking about a pink elephant.
What's
right?
a pink elephant? Why does that have to do with it? Yeah.
And the fact is that, when you say don't before a phrase, you start focusing on that one thing, right? Yeah. So rather than what you don't
Reverse
want,
psychology.
focus on what you do want. Focus on the things that you actually want to accomplish. And that goes for those hard, difficult, training sessions. So if you're in training, or if you're in Zwift, or if you're doing a hard bike, if you are approaching this really difficult block or whatever it might look like, choose what you want out of that difficult block. Again, putting purpose behind things that you do.
Yeah, I like that. So there's three things I keep hearing is, and I've been saying this myself, there's choices, it's our attitude. And what I've been saying is attitude is gratitude. And it's that reset is the third thing, is that we need to stop and reset frequently. And I think not just during workouts, through life and each day, and just take a pause. Like I had a client, it's holiday season, came in, she's all stressed out. I'm like, you need to sit down, just take some breathing exercises, go sit on my massage table, lie down, and come back when you're ready.
Beautiful.
Because I don't want to have people like rushing and then go to your workout and you're already stressed out. It's like, I don't want that. You're releasing cortisol before you've even done anything, Yeah. So I think it's really important this time of year for training and just all year long is that, it's a choice you have how you want to react to situations. You have an attitude for gratitude, to be happy, and to reset, and being aware of yourself enough that you take time to stop, pause, and push that reset button when
Beautiful.
you're ready to have a meltdown.
Beautiful. And I always like to come up with control the controllables. I think people have a really hard time with focusing and putting their attention on things that they can't do anything about.
Yeah.
And I always say, the controllables are what you eat. You can always control what you eat. If you're hangry, go back to eat something. And the eat that I go after is very similar to yours. Effort, attitude, and teamwork.
Yeah.
Effort, what you can do in the moment, attitude, your whole, view on the moment, and then teamwork of how you work with yourself is most important, rather than how you work with other people, because you need to take care of you first.
Take care of you. Exactly.
Yeah. Control the controllables there.
So your website, we're running out of time. We can talk forever. I love this topic. But the mental on your website, just looking at the mental grit athlete chooses: response before reaction, strength before weakness, and process before outcome, earn it and own it over entitlement, real world results. So great stuff. And I think everyone can benefit this, whatever athlete. And I think the kids, I know a lot of my clients have high schoolers in sports, and mentalgritconsulting.com. And what other links and things do you want to tell everyone to go to?
You can jump on Facebook. You can jump along with us on Instagram as well. We usually have a weekly topic that we talk to, whether it be for a parent, a coach, or athletes. We talk to those three different audiences. But there's always things that you can do, whether it be in your own mind or in the environment around the athlete, to help them optimize their full athletic potential. And that's what Mental Grit is all about. So
great. Love it. Thanks. I'm glad. I don't know how I got the email, but it perfect timing. Just look like what we're talking about, want to share with our athletes for the Whole Athlete Podcast.com. You can find us on the YouTube channel and the Whole Athlete Podcast.com website, and the links on iTunes and everything too, and Facebook and all of that stuff. And thank you for coming on the show, Nate, and we'll be in touch. We could some other topics I think we could dive into.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.